The morning sun cast long shadows across the dense jungle of Verdania 7 as Dr. Kevin Martinez stepped out of the small research outpost. The air was thick with humidity and filled with the sounds of alien creatures calling from the canopy above. He had been on this planet for 8 months now, leading a team of 12 researchers who came here to study the unique life forms that covered every inch of this green world. Kevin wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his tablet. The data they had collected so far was incredible. Verdonia 7 had more species of plants and animals than any world humans had ever discovered, but it was also dangerous. Very dangerous. 3 other research teams from different alien races had tried to study this planet before humans arrived. None of them made it past the first month. The jungle had ways of killing visitors that even the most advanced medical technology could not handle. Lisa Wong, the team's communications specialist, walked up beside him. She was holding a steaming cup of coffee, one of the few comforts they had brought from Earth. "Any word from the orbital station today?" she asked. Kevin shook his head. "Nothing unusual. Just the regular supply drop scheduled for next week." He paused and looked up at the clear morning sky. "Though I did pick up some strange energy readings on the long-range sensors about an hour ago." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Strange how? Big ship? Really big. And it's not moving like a cargo vessel or a research ship. Whatever it is, it's heading straight for us." As if summoned by their conversation, a massive shadow fell across the jungle clearing. Both humans looked up to see a ship unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was easily 3 times the size of their entire research station, with a sleek black hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols glowed along its sides in a deep purple color, and weapon ports were clearly visible across its surface. The ship settled into a hover about 50 meters above the clearing, its engines making a low humming sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. Then, without warning, a beam of energy shot down from the ship and began forming a platform of solid light just at the edge of the jungle. "I think we're about to have visitors," Lisa said quietly. Kevin activated his communicator and called back to the research station. "All teams, this is Kevin. We have an unidentified alien vessel in our airspace. Everyone stay calm and follow first contact protocols. Do not make any aggressive moves." The light platform solidified completely, and figures began materializing on it. The first to appear was clearly the leader. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, with a powerful build that spoke of both intelligence and physical strength. His skin was covered in crystalline scales that shifted color from deep purple to bright violet as he moved. 4 arms extended from his torso, each ending in hands that had 3 long fingers tipped with what looked like natural claws. His head was elongated, with large eyes that glowed with an inner light and a mouth filled with sharp teeth. Behind him, 6 other beings materialized. They were different species, but all carried advanced weapons and wore armor that hummed with energy. One looked like a giant spider with metal legs, another was covered in what appeared to be living rock, and a third had tentacles instead of arms and breathed through gills on its neck. The tall leader stepped forward and spoke in a voice that was deep and commanding. His words came through a translation device that converted his speech into perfect English. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet. You will identify yourselves and explain your presence on this world." Kevin and Lisa exchanged glances. Then Kevin stepped forward with his hands visible and empty. "I'm Dr. Kevin Martinez, and this is Lisa Wong. We're researchers from Earth, here to study the local ecosystem. We come in peace." Zethkar swore. Arms moved in what might have been dismissive gestures. "Earth, yes, we know of your species. Small, weak, short-lived creatures who have barely learned to leave their home system. You spread across space like some kind of pest, claiming worlds without permission from those who rule the galaxy. Lisa activated her own translation device and spoke carefully. We didn't know this world was claimed by anyone. Our scans showed no signs of intelligent life or previous settlements. Ignorance is not an excuse, Zethkar replied. His scales shifted to a darker purple, which Kevin guessed might indicate anger or irritation. The hegemony has ruled this sector of space for over 2,000 years. Every world here belongs to us, whether we have visited it or not. The alien commander walked closer, and Kevin could see that his armor was incredibly advanced. Energy fields flickered across its surface, and small devices attached to various points seemed to be constantly scanning the environment. This was technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Your species has been observed, Zethkar continued. We have watched you spread from world to world, building your small colonies and research stations. You are like children playing with tools you do not understand. The time has come for you to accept your place in the galactic order. Kevin tried to keep his voice calm and respectful. What kind of place would that be? Servitude, of course, Zethkar said, as if the answer should be obvious. Your species will work for the hegemony. You will mine resources, tend farms, and perform other simple tasks under proper supervision. In return, you will be protected and fed. It is a generous offer. Lisa stepped forward slightly. And if we refuse? Zethkar's 4 arms moved again. And this time, his meaning was clear. The gesture was threatening. Refusal is not an option. I have seen the reports on your species. You are fragile, slow to reproduce, and possess no significant military technology. Your entire civilization could be eliminated in a matter of days if necessary. The other aliens behind their commander had spread out slightly, creating a semicircle around the 2 humans. Their weapons were not directly pointed at Kevin and Lisa, but the threat was obvious. These beings had come expecting easy surrender from a primitive species. Kevin looked at the massive ship hovering overhead, then at the advanced weapons and armor of their visitors. Everything Zethkar said about human military weakness was true. Earth's space navy was tiny compared to what he was seeing here. If this hegemony wanted to conquer humanity, they probably could do it without much difficulty. But something about the alien commander's absolute confidence bothered him. Kevin had spent his entire career studying life forms that others had dismissed as simple or primitive, only to discover that they had developed incredible ways to survive in hostile environments. Maybe humans were not as helpless as they appeared. To a technologically advanced species, Zethkar seemed to interpret Kevin's silence as acceptance. Good, you begin to understand the reality of your situation. We will establish a base here and begin organizing your people for proper integration into hegemony society. The alien commander raised one of his 4 arms to emphasize his point, gesturing broadly toward the jungle around them. This world will serve as an excellent example of human compliance. Soon, all of your colonies will follow the same pattern. As he spoke, his sweeping arm motion disturbed a cluster of leaves hanging from a nearby tree. The vegetation rustled, and something small and dark flew out from its hiding place. Kevin's eyes widened as he recognized the creature heading straight for the alien leader. It was a Verdanian spike wasp, one of the most dangerous insects on the planet, and Zethkar had just made himself a target. The Verdanian spike wasp moved faster than any creature Kevin had ever seen. It was roughly the size of a human fist, with wings that buzzed like an angry machine, and a stinger that gleamed black in the morning sunlight. The insect flew directly at Zethkar's exposed neck, the one spot where his advanced armor had a small gap to allow for movement. Kevin shouted a warning, but it was too late. The wasp struck the alien commander with a wet thudding sound, its stinger piercing deep into the crystalline scales. Zethkar roared in surprise and pain, swatting at the creature with 2 of his 4 arms, But the wasp had already done its work and buzzed away into the jungle canopy. "Just a primitive insect," Zethkar said dismissively, pulling the stinger from his neck with one clawed hand. "Your planet's wildlife is as pathetic as your species." He tossed the stinger aside and turned back to Kevin and Lisa. "Now, where were we discussing your surrender?" But even as he spoke, Kevin could see changes beginning in the alien commander's appearance. The deep purple scales around the sting site were starting to shift color, becoming a sickly yellow-green that spread outward like ripples in a pond. Zethkar seemed unaware of the change, continuing to speak about hegemony plans for human integration. Lisa grabbed Kevin's arm and whispered urgently, "That's a spike wasp sting. Remember what happened to Johnson and Peters?" Kevin nodded grimly. 2 members of their research team had been stung by similar insects during their 3rd month on Verdania 7. The venom had nearly killed them both before the team found a way to counteract its effects. He watched as the discoloration spread further across Zethkar's scales, knowing that the alien commander had perhaps 45 minutes before the poison reached his brain. The spider-like alien behind Zethkar noticed the color change first. Its mechanical legs clicked rapidly as it moved closer to examine its leader. "Commander, your integument displays unusual pigmentation patterns," it said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Recommend immediate medical scan." Zethkar waved the creature away with 2 arms, while the other 2 began trembling slightly. "Nonsense. Clicking death approaches. I feel perfectly fine." But his voice was already beginning to slur, and his confident posture was starting to waver. The alien medic ignored his commander's protests and activated a handheld device that projected a blue beam over Zethkar's body. The results appeared as holographic symbols that floated in the air above the scanner. Clicking death approaches studied them for several seconds, its multiple eyes darting back and forth across the data. "Commander, you have been injected with an unknown biological compound," the medic announced. "The substance is attacking your nervous system at the cellular level. I am detecting rapid breakdown of neural pathway connections throughout your body." Zethkar tried to maintain his commanding presence, but Kevin could see that the alien leader was beginning to understand the seriousness of his situation. 2 of his arms were now shaking uncontrollably, and his speech had become noticeably slurred. The yellow-green discoloration was spreading across his chest and beginning to creep up toward his head. "Fix it then," Zethkar ordered, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. "Use your medical technology." Clicking death approaches activated several more devices, each one scanning the commander from different angles and producing streams of data. "I am detecting a complex organic toxin unlike anything in our medical databases. The compound appears to be specifically designed to target large predator nervous systems. Our standard detoxification procedures are proving ineffective." The other aliens in the group began moving nervously, their weapons still trained on Kevin and Lisa, but their attention clearly focused on their leader's deteriorating condition. The rock-covered alien stepped forward and spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Perhaps we should return to the ship immediately. The medical bay has more advanced equipment." "No time," Clicking Death Approaches replied, its scanner beeping. Frantically, "the toxin is progressing too rapidly. At current rate of neural degradation, the commander will experience complete motor function failure within 43 minutes. Brain death will follow approximately 7 minutes later." Kevin felt Lisa tense beside him. He knew she was thinking the same thing he was. They had dealt with this exact type of envenomation before, and they knew how to treat it. But would the aliens listen to advice from the species they had just threatened to enslave? Zethkar stumbled slightly, his 4 legs struggling to maintain balance as the poison continued its work. His scales were now predominantly yellow-green, with only small patches of purple remaining. "Your technology must have a solution," he said to his medic, though his words were becoming increasingly difficult to understand. Negative, Commander, Clicking Death Approaches replied. I am attempting to synthesize counter-agents using our nano-medical systems, but the organic compound structure is too complex. Our quantum medicine protocols are also proving inadequate. This toxin appears to exploit biological pathways that our technology was not designed to address. Lisa stepped forward carefully, her hands visible and empty. We might be able to help, she said quietly. Immediately, 3 alien weapons swiveled toward her. The tentacled creature hissed something that the translator rendered as the primitive. Dares to speak. But Clicking Death Approaches held up 2 of its metal legs in a gesture that seemed to mean wait. Explain your statement, human, it said. Kevin moved to stand beside Lisa, knowing that this was their only chance to prevent an interstellar incident. We've been studying Verdanian wildlife for 8 months, he said. 3 members of our team have survived spike wasp attacks. We know how the venom works and how to counteract it. Zethkar's glowing eyes fixed on Kevin with obvious skepticism, even as his body continued to betray him. Your primitive medicine against hegemony technology, he managed to say, though the words came out broken and unclear. With respect, Commander, Lisa said, your advanced technology isn't working. The toxin in your system is organic, not technological. It evolved here on this planet over millions of years to be as effective as possible against large predators. Like yourself. Clicking Death Approaches continued scanning its commander while listening to the humans. The degradation rate is accelerating, it announced. Commander, your neural pathways are failing at an exponential rate. We now have approximately 38 minutes before irreversible damage occurs. Kevin could see desperation beginning to creep into the aliens' behavior. Their absolute confidence in their technological superiority was cracking as they watched their leader slowly dying from what they considered a primitive biological threat. The other aliens in the group were looking back and forth between their failing commander and the 2 humans who claimed to have a solution. What do you propose? Clicking Death Approaches asked, its voice carrying what Kevin interpreted as barely controlled panic. Let us examine him, Kevin said. Let us explain what's happening in his body and what we need to do to stop it. Your scanners can monitor everything we do. Zethkar tried to object, but his speech was now so slurred that even the translation device was having difficulty processing his words. His forearms were shaking violently, and the yellow-green discoloration had reached the base of his neck. Time was running out for the alien commander, and everyone present knew it. The spider-like medic looked at its dying leader, then at the humans, then back at its medical readings. 36 minutes remaining, it announced grimly. Clicking Death Approaches finally lowered its weapons and gestured for the other aliens to do the same. You may approach the commander, it said to Kevin and Lisa, though its voice carried clear warning. But any hostile action will result in immediate termination. Kevin moved slowly toward Zethkar, who was now leaning heavily against the light platform for support. The alien commander's breathing had become labored, and his glowing eyes were starting to dim. Kevin knelt beside him and gently examined the sting site on his neck, being careful not to make any sudden movements that might alarm the guards. The venom is breaking down the connections between his nerve cells, Kevin explained to the alien. Medic, it's like cutting telephone wires throughout his body. First he loses motor control, then his organs will start shutting down, and finally his brain will stop working. Lisa activated her tablet and showed the aliens data from their previous encounters with spike wasps. We documented everything when our team members were stung. The toxin has a very specific chemical structure that targets large predators. It's designed to paralyze prey quickly and efficiently. Clicking Death Approaches studied the human data with obvious skepticism. Your primitive scanning equipment could not possibly provide accurate molecular analysis, it said. Our quantum medical systems have identified over 400 separate compounds in the venom, each one designed to attack different biological systems. That's exactly right, Kevin agreed, surprising the alien medic. The spike wasp venom is incredibly complex. But complexity isn't always the answer to complexity. Sometimes you need to think about the problem differently. Zethkar tried to speak, but only managed a weak growling sound. His forearms had stopped shaking and were now hanging limply at his sides. The yellow-green discoloration had spread across most of his body, and Kevin could see that they were running out of time. 32 minutes remaining. Clicking death approaches. Announced after another scan. Kevin stood up and looked directly at the alien medic. Your technology is trying to analyze and counteract every single compound in the venom individually. That's why it's not working. The venom components work together as a system, not as separate chemicals. Explain, the medic demanded. Lisa pulled up more data on her tablet. We discovered that spike wasps evolved alongside other species on this planet. There's a natural ecosystem here, with predators and prey and plants all connected to each other. The wasps develop their venom to hunt specific types of creatures, but the plants develop defenses against the venom. Plants, repeated the rock-covered alien dismissively. You suggest that primitive vegetation could provide medical treatment superior to hegemony quantum medicine. Kevin was already moving toward the research station. I need to get something from our supplies. He called back. Keep monitoring his condition. He ran through the jungle paths that his team had cleared over the past 8 months, dodging hanging vines and avoiding the patches of ground where they knew dangerous creatures lived. The research station was a simple collection of bifurcated buildings that looked primitive compared to the alien ship hovering overhead, but it contained everything the human team needed to survive on this hostile world. Kevin burst into the food storage building and grabbed what he was looking for from a shelf near the back. It was a simple yellow onion, one of dozens they had brought from Earth to supplement their diet. To most people, it would look like nothing special, just a common vegetable that could be found in any kitchen. But Kevin knew it might be the key to saving an alien life. He ran back to the clearing where Zethkar was now barely conscious. The alien commander's breathing was shallow and irregular, and his scales had turned almost completely yellow-green. Clicking death approaches was frantically operating multiple medical devices, but none of them seemed to be helping. 28 minutes remaining, the medic announced as Kevin approached. Kevin held up the onion, and several of the aliens stepped back in confusion. The tentacled creature made a sound that the translator rendered as disgusted laughter. The human brings primitive food while our leader dies. This isn't just food, Kevin said, kneeling beside Zethkar again. This is medicine. He activated his knife and began carefully cutting the onion into sections, releasing its sharp smell into the jungle air. Clicking death approaches aimed its scanner at the onion and studied the results. I detect various sulfur compounds, some simple organic acids, and trace minerals. Nothing that could possibly counteract a complex neurotoxin. Lisa joined Kevin and began helping him prepare the onion. The sulfur compounds are the key, she explained to the aliens. Spike wasps evolved to hunt creatures that eat certain plants. Those plants contain sulfur compounds that break down the proteins in the wasp venom. Impossible, Clicking Death Approaches said. Our analysis shows no interaction between these simple organic molecules and the venom proteins. Kevin continued working with the onion, crushing it into a paste between 2 rocks. Your analysis is looking at individual chemical reactions, but biology doesn't work that way. Living systems are about interactions and processes, not just isolated compounds mixing together. He applied some of the onion paste directly to the sting site on Zethkar's neck, working it gently into the wound. The alien commander didn't react, which Kevin knew was a bad sign. The venom had progressed to the point where Zethkar was losing all sensation. The onion compounds need to get into his bloodstream, Kevin explained as he worked. But they also need to be processed by his digestive system to become fully active. We learned this when treating our own people. Lisa was preparing a liquid mixture using crushed onion and water from their supplies. We need him to drink this, she said. The sulfur compounds will be absorbed through his stomach and spread throughout his body through his blood. The aliens watched in amazement and horror as the humans performed what appeared to be primitive plant magic on their dying leader. Clicking Death Approaches continued scanning, but now its voice carried uncertainty rather than dismissive confidence. I am detecting slight changes in the commander's biochemistry, it admitted. But the readings make no sense according to our medical understanding. Your medical understanding is based on technology, Kevin said as he helped Lisa lift Zethkar. Head to give him the onion mixture. Our understanding is based on evolution. This planet has been running chemical experiments for millions of years. The plants and animals here have solved problems that your quantum computers haven't even thought of yet. The alien commander's throat moved slightly as he swallowed the liquid, though he remained unconscious. Kevin could see that his breathing was still shallow, and his color remained yellow-green, but at least they had gotten the treatment into his system. 24 minutes remaining. Clicking Death Approaches announced, though its voice now carried more uncertainty than authority. Kevin sat back and wiped sweat from his forehead. Now we wait, he said. The onion compounds need time to break down the venom proteins and restore the nerve connections. If our theory is right, we should start seeing improvement in the next 10 to 15 minutes. The aliens stood in tense silence, their weapons lowered but ready, watching their leader fight for his life with nothing but primitive plant medicine to help him. The jungle fell silent, except for the soft humming of alien medical devices and the labored breathing of their dying commander. Kevin knelt beside Zethkar, watching for any sign that the onion treatment was working. The alien leader's scales remained that sickly yellow-green color, and his forearms hung motionless at his sides. Lisa checked her chronometer. It's been 12 minutes since we applied the treatment, she whispered to Kevin. With Johnson and Peters, we started seeing improvement after 15 minutes. Clicking Death Approaches continued its constant scanning, the blue medical beam playing across Zethkar's body, while holographic data streamed through the air above its handheld device. 18 minutes until complete neural shutdown, it announced. Grimly, I am detecting no significant change in the commander's condition. The other aliens shifted nervously, their weapons still lowered, but their postures tense with barely controlled anxiety. The tentacled creature made wet breathing sounds through its gill slits, while the rock-covered alien's stone-like skin began changing color to a darker gray that Kevin guessed indicated stress or fear. Your primitive treatment has failed, the tentacled alien said, its translator rendering the words with obvious disgust. We should execute these humans for wasting precious time with their ignorant plant magic. Kevin felt his heart racing, but he forced himself to remain calm. Give it more time, he said quietly. Biology works differently than technology. It doesn't happen instantly. Time we do not have, Clicking Death Approaches replied, though. Kevin noticed that the alien medic continued scanning rather than giving up on the treatment entirely. Suddenly, Zethkar's breathing changed. Instead of the shallow, irregular gasps he had been making, his chest began rising and falling in a steadier rhythm. Kevin leaned closer and saw something that made him smile with relief. Look at his neck, he said to Lisa, pointing to the area. Around the original sting site, the yellow-green discoloration that had spread across Zethkar's scales was beginning to fade. It was happening slowly, like watching paint dry in reverse, but the change was definitely there. Small patches of the alien commander's original deep purple color or appearing among the sickly green. Clicking Death approaches, aimed its scanner at the changing area and studied the results with what Kevin interpreted as shock. Impossible, it muttered. The toxin levels in the commander's bloodstream are decreasing. Neural pathway restoration is beginning to occur. The other aliens crowded closer to see their medic's readings. Kevin could sense their amazement as their advanced technology confirmed what the simple human treatment was accomplishing. The onion. Compounds were actually breaking down the spike wasp venom and allowing Zethkar's nervous system to repair itself. How is this possible? The rock-covered alien asked, its stone-like voice carrying genuine curiosity rather than dismissive anger. Kevin continued applying more onion paste to the sting site while Lisa prepared another dose of the liquid mixture. Evolution, he said simply. This planet has been running biological experiments for millions of years. The spike wasps developed their venom to hunt large predators, but the plants developed chemical defenses against that same venom. But our quantum medical analysis showed no molecular interaction between your plant compounds and the venom proteins. Clicking Death approaches protested, even as its scanners continued showing improvement in its commander's condition. Lisa helped Kevin lift Zethkar's head to give him more of the onion mixture. Your analysis was looking at individual chemicals in isolation, she explained. But living systems don't work that way. The sulfur compounds in the onion don't just neutralize the venom. They help the body's own repair systems work faster. The purple color was spreading more quickly now across Zethkar's scales, pushing back the yellow-green discoloration like a slow tide. His breathing continued to improve, and Kevin could see small movements in his forearms as nerve function began returning to his extremities. 14 minutes until projected neural shutdown. Clicking Death approaches announced, but its voice now carried hope rather than despair. However, current data suggests that projection may no longer be accurate. Zethkar's eyes suddenly fluttered, open, their inner glow noticeably brighter than it had been for the past half hour. He tried to speak, but only managed a weak croaking sound. Kevin quickly offered him more of the onion mixture, which the alien commander accepted without protest. Take it slow, Kevin advised. Your nervous system is still recovering. You'll feel weak for a while, but the worst is over. The alien leader's eyes focused on Kevin's face with obvious confusion. You, he said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. You helped me. We couldn't just stand there and watch you die, Lisa replied. Especially not from something we knew how to treat. Zethkar struggled to sit up, his forearms shaking with the effort, but clearly regaining strength. Clicking Death approaches immediately began scanning him again, and Kevin could see amazement in the alien medic's multiple eyes as it studied the results. Commander, your neural pathways are regenerating at an accelerated rate, it reported. Toxin levels have dropped to less than 5% of their peak concentration. Motor function is returning to normal parameters. The other aliens stared at their recovering leader, then at the two humans who had saved his life with nothing more than a simple onion from their food supplies. Kevin could sense that something fundamental had changed in how they viewed the human species. Zethkar managed to pull himself fully upright, though he still needed to lean against the light platform for support. His scales were now mostly purple again, with only small patches of yellow-green remaining around the original sting site. I do not understand, he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Your medical knowledge should be worthless against a toxin that defeated our quantum healing systems. Kevin sat back on his heels and looked up at the massive alien commander. We don't have quantum healing systems, he said. What we have is 8 months of experience on this planet. We've learned to work with the ecosystem instead of trying to dominate it. Work with it, Zethkar repeated, as if the concept was foreign to him. Lisa gestured toward the jungle around them. This world defeated 3 other research teams before we arrived. They all tried to impose their technology on the environment. We decided to study the environment and learn from it instead. You adapted, Zethkar said slowly, understanding beginning to show in his glowing eyes. Kevin nodded. When our people were stung by spike wasps, we didn't try to create some complex technological solution. We looked at how the local ecosystem dealt with the problem. We found that certain plants had evolved sulfur compounds that break down the venom. Earth onions have similar compounds, so we tested them and found they worked. Clicking Death Approaches had finished its medical scans and was studying the data with obvious fascination. The human treatment has not only neutralized the toxin, it announced, it has actually enhanced the commander's natural healing processes. His recovery rate is exceeding normal biological parameters. Zethkar looked down at his 4 arms, flexing the fingers and testing his returning strength. For the first time since Kevin had met him, the alien commander seemed uncertain rather than arrogantly confident. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "You saved the life of someone who came here to conquer your species." The implications of what had just happened were beginning to sink in for everyone present. The technologically superior aliens had been helpless against a simple biological threat, while the supposedly primitive humans had provided an effective solution using nothing more than practical knowledge and a common vegetable. "Why?" Zethkar asked, looking directly at Kevin. "Why would you help an enemy?" Kevin looked at the alien commander, who was now sitting upright with his strength rapidly returning. The question hung in the air between them, like a challenge that would determine the future of both their species. Because it was the right thing to do, Kevin said simply. We couldn't watch someone die when we had the knowledge to save them. Zethkar studied Kevin's face with his glowing eyes, searching for signs of deception or hidden motives. Even an enemy who threatened to enslave. "Your people." Lisa stepped forward and sat down cross-legged on the jungle floor, making herself appear smaller and less threatening. "You're not our enemy," she said calmly. "You're just someone who doesn't understand us yet." The alien commander flexed his 4 arms, testing his returning motor control. His scales were now completely purple again, and his breathing had returned to normal. "I came here expecting to find a weak species that would submit to hegemony rule without resistance. Instead, I find beings who save the lives of those who threaten them." Clicking Death Approaches finished packing away its medical equipment and approached its commander. "Sir, your recovery is complete. All biological systems are functioning within normal parameters. The human treatment has been remarkably effective." Zethkar stood up slowly, his full 3-meter height once again imposing despite what had just happened. But something had changed in his posture and expression. The arrogant confidence was gone, replaced by thoughtful curiosity. "Tell me about your research here," he said to Kevin. "How did you learn to survive on a world that defeated 3 other expeditions?" Kevin glanced at Lisa, who nodded encouragingly. "We started by admitting that we didn't know everything," he said. "The other teams that came here tried to impose their own solutions on every problem they encountered. When they met dangerous wildlife, they tried to kill it. When they encountered toxic plants, they tried to destroy them. When the environment fought back, they fought harder. And your approach was different," Zethkar said, though it was more of a statement than a question. Lisa activated her tablet and showed the aliens some of their research data. "We spent the first 3 months just watching and learning. We studied how the local animals avoided the dangerous plants. We learned which creatures hunted which prey and how the prey survived. We mapped the relationships between different species. When our people were stung or poisoned," Kevin continued, "we looked for natural solutions. We watched which animals recovered from injuries and what they ate when they were sick. We tested local plants to see which ones had medicinal properties. It took time, but we learned to work with the ecosystem instead of against it. The rock-covered alien spoke up for the first time since the crisis began. This approach seems inefficient compared to simply using superior technology to overcome environmental challenges. Kevin smiled at the comment. It might seem that way, but look at the results. We've been here for 8 months with 0 casualties. The other expeditions lasted less than a month each, despite having much more advanced technology than we do. Zeth Carr walked to the edge of the clearing and looked out into the dense jungle. His forearms moved in what Kevin was beginning to recognize as gestures of deep thought. In all my years commanding hegemony forces, I have never encountered a species that approaches problems the way you do, he said slowly. How do other species approach problems? Lisa asked. With force, Zeth Carr replied immediately. With superior technology, overwhelming firepower, and absolute confidence in their own methods. It is how the hegemony was built. It is how we have maintained control for 2,000 years. Clicking Death Approaches had been studying the human research data on Lisa's tablet. Commander, their survival rate on this hostile world is unprecedented. No other species has achieved such success in adapting to Verdanian environmental conditions. Zeth Carr turned back to face the humans. You said earlier that you work with the ecosystem instead of trying to dominate it. What exactly does that mean? Kevin thought for a moment about how to explain their philosophy in terms the aliens would understand. It means we assume that the natural world is smarter than we are, he said finally. This planet has been solving survival problems for millions of years. The plants and animals here have figured out ways to live together, to heal from injuries, to defend against threats. Instead of ignoring all that knowledge, we try to learn from it. But surely your technology gives you advantages that primitive biological systems cannot match, the tentacled alien interjected. Lisa nodded. Of course it does. Our technology is very useful for many things. But when it comes to surviving in a complex biological environment, sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. The onion that saved your commander's life is more sophisticated than any medicine we could manufacture. Zeth Carr began pacing back and forth across the clearing, his forearms moving in complex patterns as he processed what he was learning. The hegemony has been expanding across the galaxy for millennia, he said. We have conquered hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. But we have also lost entire expeditions to biological threats that our technology could not overcome. Like what happened here today, Kevin said quietly. Exactly like what happened here today, Zeth Carr agreed. We have quantum medicine, nano-healers, cellular regeneration technology. But a simple insect nearly killed me because our advanced systems could not understand how to counteract a natural toxin. The alien commander stopped pacing and looked directly at Kevin and Lisa. I came here to demand your species surrender, he said, but now I find myself wondering what the hegemony could learn from humans instead. Clicking Death Approaches looked up from the tablet it had been studying. Commander, the human approach to biological problem-solving could be invaluable for our frontier colonies. We currently lose significant resources to environmental hazards on dozens of worlds. More than that, Zeth Carr said, his voice growing excited as new possibilities occurred to him. This adaptive intelligence could revolutionize how we approach exploration and colonization. Instead of trying to terraform every world to match our preferences, we could learn to work with existing ecosystems. Lisa and Kevin exchanged glances, both realizing that something unprecedented was happening. The alien commander who had arrived to conquer humanity was now talking about learning from them instead. What are you proposing? Kevin asked carefully. Zeth Carr straightened to his full height, but his posture was no longer threatening. I am proposing an alliance, he said formally. A hegemony has technology and resources that could benefit humanity. Humans have adaptive intelligence and biological wisdom that could benefit the hegemony. Together, we could accomplish more than either species could achieve alone. The other aliens looked shocked at their commander's words. The tentacled creature made sounds of protest, but Zithkar silenced it with a gesture from 2 of his 4 arms. "Commander," Clicking Death Approaches said cautiously, "the Hegemony Council will need to approve any formal alliance with a new species. Then we will present them with evidence of human capabilities," Zethkar replied. "We will show them how. A simple vegetable succeeded where our most advanced medicine failed. We will demonstrate that true intelligence is not always about having the most sophisticated technology." Kevin felt a smile spreading across his face as he realized what this could mean for both species. "So instead of conquest, you're talking about cooperation." "I am talking about evolution," Zethkar said, using a word that clearly had special meaning for him now. "The hegemony has grown powerful by imposing our will on the galaxy. But perhaps it is time we learn to adapt instead of simply dominate." The alien commander activated a communication device on his armor and spoke in his own language to his ship hovering overhead. Kevin couldn't understand the words, but the tone suggested that major changes were being set in motion. "I am ordering my fleet to stand down," Zethkar explained to the humans. "There will be no invasion of human space. Instead, I am requesting permission to establish a joint research facility here on Verdania 7. Human adaptability combined with hegemony technology could unlock secrets that neither of our species could discover alone." Lisa stood up and brushed dirt from her clothes. "I think our research station could use some expansion," she said with a grin dot as the alien ship began descending toward the clearing to begin a new chapter in interstellar relations. Kevin picked up the remains of the onion that had started everything. It seemed incredible that such a simple thing could change the course of galactic history, but perhaps that was exactly the kind of lesson both species needed to learn.